All right.
Here we go, I think.
We are live. Welcome, everybody.
There's already people here, I see. We have Mark. And yes, awesome.
Hey, Margot Katz.
How are you, Mark?
This Mark?
Yeah, this Mark.
I am grateful today and a little bit hot and a little bit thoughtful about this whole week that we just covered. It was a lot of material. It was a lot of new thoughts, and I tried to practice all of the ideas as well. Yeah.
Yes.
How are you doing, Renee? How was this week for you?
This week was great. I'm a little tired today because I had my second dose of the vaccine, as I was telling you right before we hopped here. So my dose yesterday, so I'm a little tired today, but otherwise I feel good. And I agree with you. It's really interesting on how, like, thinking about this content for this challenge is such an amazing exercise in self-reflection as well. And like, one of my big thing in everything that I teach with Mind Over Finger is beginner's mind. So it's just so wonderful to always have, I always feel like I'm thinking, oh, thanks for the reminder. This is so important to remember, to stay in that space. So it's been awesome. Hi, Joe. And Margot.
Yeah.
We have like Warrington, Virginia, and Australia.
Magical. A world of musicians.
Exactly. Okay, where do we start?
Well, I thought we could just start by doing a little rehash of each day to prime our minds, remember what we've been covering this week. And also, if anybody wants to set an intention, our live visitors or even on a replay, if you want to set an intention for how this experience may unfold for you, now would be a good time.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. So my intention is to masterfully practice our principles in this Q&A by interleaving, by having an intention, by being aware of my body, by being aware of my emotions, all of it, by paying attention. That's my intention. Did anything arise for you, Renee?
Yeah, I think for me, it could be because I mentioned beginner's mind. So I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold. And I'm looking forward to taking the experience and kind of, I think I just feel open-minded to anything that's about to happen.
Awesome. Yeah. Make space for the unknown.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Should we do a little recap of the week?
Let's do it. So day one was time mastery, and we talked all about setting timers. We talked about interleaving and spacing. What else did we talk about? I feel like we had just phase coherent interleaving was a thought that was on there.
Organizing your playlist.
Organizing the playlist, exactly. And in addition, just this idea of like riding time rather than trying to get stuck in time. For example, if you're watching the clock all the time, if you're thinking about it, then you're not able to be in your creative mind. And one of the things that we didn't talk about in the email, but I would love to unpack or jam on a little bit, is the difference between being in the infinite present moment and when you're actually kind of like tracking how much time you're spending and where you're going, how much you have left. Do you have any thoughts on that, Renee? How you balance between presence and future orientation?
You know what? It's very hard for me to speak about this in terms of something that is consistent, because I find that both in practice, and I'll take, for example, meditation, where I have, so in the meditation that I practice, there's no timer, you know what I mean? You just kind of open your eyes and see if it's time to stop. There's this idea of not having something that takes you out of the meditation abruptly to just kind of awaken from the meditation. And there are days where I open my eyes thinking, for sure it's over, and it's only been 4 minutes. And then there are other days where I open my eyes and I'm like, ooh, like my buffer timer, I always have kind of a buffer timer if I'm on a schedule, is about to go, you know? And I think that practicing is the same, where I find that in a strange way, having the timer there allows me to focus 100% on what I'm doing. Because I do practice with the timer, in the sense that I have so much time to allocate to one element, let's say, and I don't have to worry about running out of time for practicing the other things that I want to do on my list. I hope that makes sense what I'm saying so far. But let's say I have allocated 8 minutes to long tones. As I'm doing them, I'm not even looking at the clock. I'm just focusing on what I'm doing, because I know that at some point I'll look up and I'll see, oh, time's up. Time to move on to the next thing.
And because you use a timer, if you said, all right, I'm going to do 8 minutes, and you had it written down on a piece of paper, 8 minutes long tones, 4 minutes bowing, and you're actually having to calculate and watch the clock and do all that, it'd be a nightmare.
Precisely. So it's like that strange thing of having the timer allows me freedom of time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And it is the same for me, where when my meditation practice does normally have a timer, precisely because that allows me to go, okay, phew, I know I can completely relax into the present moment, because I am going to get a reminder when it's time to move on. A lot of high performers, and in particular artists, have this, where they've got, like MTT, Michael Tilson Thomas, he's got Shoko, who she manages his time. Like, he never knows what time it is, what he has to be doing, or anything. She's just kind of like, all right, Michael, come on, next child, next puppy. And he just gets to be completely present with whatever's in front of him. That, for us who don't have a Shoko, I think that a timer is a really nice hack for that.
Yeah. It was funny because when I was at New World working with MTT is when he was reading The Power of Now. So this now concept, he was constantly talking about this now, you know. And it was just really interesting to have a conductor invite like a whole orchestra to go deeper into something that was not specifically a crescendo, you know. It was really it was so wonderful to have these conversations. Well, it was mostly him talking about it, but I just was really enjoying this. I don't think I'm going to blame Pfizer for my lack of coherence right now, but I think you understand what I mean. It's just that if he takes 2 minutes to talk to us about the concept of present time or the concept of now in the middle of us rehearsing a Debussy piece, then we would start playing and everybody was kind of in this state of maybe an elevated thinking space, and it just felt very different. So I'm totally going on a tangent here.
I love it. No, I think that's exactly the point. When you can be in the present, it gets deeper.
Yes. Joe says, I found that when I had the timer, I wasn't watching the countdown. So when the buzzer went off, I was surprised. Yeah.
Definitely. Great. So that was timer, and feel free to collect and post your questions or reflections as we go. And then we'll have a bigger time after we get through each day to answer any remaining questions about anything. Day 2 was intention. We talked about priming, we talked about goals, and we talked about mindset quite a bit. That one really, really got me. I've been watching my mindset all week in various practices and noticing when I veer off to less constructive mindsets. What else did we cover? One thing that felt really relevant was discovery goals versus SMART goals.
Mm-hmm.
A discovery goal being like, I'm going to see how far I can run on the treadmill today, or I'm going to see how fast I can play this passage, versus I insist on playing this passage at quarter equals 150, or I insist on running 5 miles in, I don't know, how many minutes.
Yeah. And you know, this makes me think of the other concept too, where it's, you want the intention to be a positive source in your practice and not a limiting, not a prison. You know, I think that having this power of intention as a guiding light
Mm-hmm.
rather than a
Cage or something.
yes, something rigid. I think the intention for me entitles a lot of openness. It's just what I said, like it's a guiding light, and it's not something that limits you to very specific parameters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an invitation to expand rather than a reason to contract.
Exactly. Very well put.
Mm.
Yes.
I wonder, one of the other things is that breath, and I actually haven't tried a full series of that breath, the 2x breath.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you would be able to lead that for us real quick, or a portion of that, just
Yes.
to get the full experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that it's really helpful if you're sitting down with your back supported and your head free. And then one thing I like to think of when I breathe is we're not sucking the air in with tensions of muscles. We're not pulling it in, but we're rather letting the breath, the rib cage expand, filling up with air. And as you're exhaling, you let it flow out. So if we start, I'm going to do a few of 2, 4, then we'll go to 3, 6, and then I'll do a few of the 4, 8. And what this does, this kind of flow is really calms down the nervous system. It affects the vagus nerves, which is the biggest one in the body, and it connects so many important organs to the nervous system. So it's a really great exercise. So you can close your eyes and then just take a few breaths to, get in touch with the natural flow of breath. And then I would invite you to join me and just maybe take in the count of 2, out through the mouth for 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 2 through the nose. Through the mouth for out to the mouth for 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, in through the nose for 2. Out for 4, 3. In for 2. Out for 4. Next, we go in for 3, 2, 1. Out through the mouth for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 3, 2. Out for 6, 5. Last time. In for 3. And out for 6. We'll go for 4. In for 4. And out for 8. In for 4. Feeling the rib cage just gently expanding. And out for 8. Gently letting the air flow out. And let's do one last one. In for 4. With the rib cage flowing. Out for 8, 7. And now we want to just come back gently to the natural flow of breath. And that's easy as that. That's the 2x breath. And if I do this in bed, I fall asleep. So if you have trouble sleeping, do this in bed. But for meditation, sit down.
One of my pet peeves for yoga instructors is when they count breaths, but they don't maintain time. And I want to acknowledge you, Renee, for having such perfect timing on those breaths. You're talking, but you're still sensing the rhythm. Pfizer can't take away your pulse. That's for sure.
It's 60 BPM. That's what it is.
Super solid. Thank you for guiding that.
You're welcome.
Would love to see how other people felt after doing that breath. I feel relaxed and joyful. And yeah, it's easier to find an intention when you have that clear mind, right?
I agree. We'll hear back.
Yeah, we'll get some.
Want to talk about day 3?
Yeah, perfect segue into attention, because breathing exercises like that really help you to invest your attention where it matters. Some of the aspects of day 3 were the attention chart and all the different places where you can put your attention while you're practicing, for example, on holistic awareness, on directing the sound, on listening, on the whole body or a part of the body. You can focus on the musical experience at hand. You can inhibit undesired behavior, which I love. Alexander technique, inhibition and direction, has been such a valuable concept for me. Are you familiar with that, Renee? I'm sure you've done Alex technique.
A little bit, but very little, unfortunately. I'm what do you call it? I yearn to do Alexander technique one day, but not yet.
Yeah, the idea is that one is that you can direct the body to do things. So I direct my neck to be long. I direct the head to be free, but you also may inhibit things. So for example, I can feel that my lower back right now has just a little bit of a clench, as a pull. And so I say, how about you don't do that, lower back?
Yes.
I'm not trying to get it to do anything. I'm just saying, what if you don't do that?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's very valuable, that both.
Yeah, it's funny because in the last round of the Music Mastery Experience, I always have guest experts come in 3 times for the program. And Laurie Schiff, who's the Alexander technique teacher at Juilliard, came and gave us a session. And since then, what I've noticed, she always talks about noticing and asking, is this necessary? And I've noticed that every time I chop vegetable, and I think it's because I'm very short, so I have a tendency to always reach for things. I always have my shoulders up. And since that session with Lori, every time I chop vegetables, I realize that, that's not necessary. What, you realize you have these unnecessary bodily movement or this tension that you hold somewhere throughout the day, all of the time. So if 1 hour with Lori can do this to me, God knows what, several sessions could do to my life.
Yeah.
And one thing I was going to say, unrelated to this, but related to attention, and my head is going in so many directions because for the needs of this challenge, we separated all elements, but you agree with me, I'm sure that, and we get to that in integration, they all live together. But attention at times, I hear from people, they're so frustrated and they can't focus. they lose their attention in practice. And so often I feel like it has to do with how engaging they make their practice be. And I find that the more curious we get in how can I make this fun? How can I make this interesting? How can I make that actually maybe even more challenging? Or I mean, even the in Audacity, the mindful practice thing, if you're out of ideas, that's a great spot to. I had some fun with that, and like if I can't come up with an idea to make it engaging, you can go play with those because there's always a great
Yeah.
thing. But if you feel your attention dwindling, it could be yes because you need a break or a glass of water or something. But at times it's simply because you are being mindless or engaging in habitual behavior and you're practicing your passage slowly because that's what you've always done and that's what your teacher said or that's what you do, you know? So you could still practice it slowly, but could you change something? Could you make it fun? Could you, like, so I think that attention dwindles when we're not engaged. So how could you bring more engagement in what you're doing? And there's therefore, because sometimes we're very passive with attention, or we're like, I don't have, I'm not focused. I'm not focused today. But I think it's possible to get focused.
All of us, you say that, and then a tiger runs in the room, and you're very focused, or something, a phone call happens, or whatever. It's focus rises to the challenge, and it can be very hard to rise to no challenge with your focus.
It's like, how focused do you become if you're in the practice room at work and you see like the principal's head pop in the window? I pay a lot of attention to what I'm doing when that happens.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, this is a good, I think the attention is a good segue to body. We were talking about watching the body and asking, even right now, maybe everybody can ask themselves, is there something you're doing with your body right now that's unnecessary that you might want to inhibit? I found some in my ankle.
Yes.
Wow.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah.
See, silly, I realize I'm leaning forward because my hair keeps getting cut in the chair, so I'll just move it, then I can lean back and relax.
Solutions. We got solutions. So body, that was a big one, very important. It's our instrument. We had talked about it being the primary instrument. I'm really, really curious what people's experiences were with the body and the emotion passages. Those were sort of, in my opinion, some of the deepest and most challenging themes to go into, precisely because they're just such universes unto themselves, the body and the emotions.
Yeah. I think that, I know for me, I'd love to hear from people who are watching, but while we wait, so this is pre-kids. When I would practice for auditions, my priming before practice, if I was preparing for a big event, at times it could take up to an hour, where I would start with usually yoga first, then meditation, and then I would have a visualization exercise. Then I would take the time to do a very precise, detailed practice chart. And then I would usually do very long targeted warm-ups. And I always found that by the time I got to the repertoire, I saved so much time because I was relaxed. My body had, I had taken the time to stretch with the yoga, and yoga makes us, for me, it makes me strong and maximizes my functions. Meditation had me centered, and a long warm-up with a lot of technical exercises that was very specifically targeted to whatever I needed. And usually excerpts, you need everything. You need the dexterity, you need the sound, you need details. And all of that would prepare everything. And, intonation would be in place. Things were working efficiently. So the reason I'm saying this is that I've said this maybe in our last live, is we are so eager to jump in the practice room and grab the instrument and get right to the work. but that's not always the most productive thing to do, because taking this little time, if you have an hour to practice, taking 10 minutes to get settled might actually be the best use of the first 10 minutes of your session.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm not saying in all cases, but many cases.
When you were describing your practice in the pre-kids time, I could almost imagine just like the focus and the rosin coming off of your bow, and just how like present you were with everything. It sounds like a very delicious practice session. Mark here says, I noticed after a poor night of poor sleep, the time planned for practice might have been better for a nap, but then he says, but 10 minutes later I was in the zone. What got him in the zone? What got you in the zone, Mark? Would love to hear about that. Did you take a 10-minute nap? Because an 8-minute nap can really, really do wonders. Yeah, and nutrition as well. We had a challenge for trying practice at different nutrition points, fasted or post meal. I wonder if anybody tried that.
It's like that afternoon or that second rehearsal day. If you have 2 rehearsals in the day and then you go for a big meal with
Everyone
colleagues
goes for
between.
lunch and falls asleep in rehearsal.
It's always tough.
Yeah, definitely.
I like what Mark says, though, because I do something that I call the delightful 10. I wrote a blog post about it many years ago, where I was talking about how sometimes we don't feel like practicing, or we're tired, and for me, at times, just looking at my case, I bypass all of the logical thinking, and I'm like right away feeling stressed, just looking at the case. And the idea behind the delightful 10 is just the promise that you make to yourself is just play something delightful for 10 minutes. And then if you don't feel like it, you can leave. But usually by then, you're in
good.
it. So
that's really good. I'm filing that one away. Oh, so Mark said that it was a plan that got him in the zone, meditating, visualizing, warm-up scales. This ties a little bit into impact mastery, which we talked about a few days ago, where you can generate energy with your practice. Or playing something delightful and beautiful.
I love what Rachel says also. So great, Rachel. Makes me so happy to read this.
Yeah, improvement is one of those, it's almost a drug. It's one of the few addictions that I let myself have in life. There's a book called Positive Addictions that talks about the fact that all of us tend to have sort of addictive or compulsive behaviors. So you might as well choose ones that positively, are positive. And I think improvement, when taken not to excess, is just one of the most fulfilling things to experience. Like, yeah, you practice, you see the growth. It's beautiful.
Yes.
Good job, Rachel. Also, winner of the Happy Birthday Challenge.
Is it Rachel's birthday?
No, she did the Happy Birthday Challenge. She recorded the Happy Birthday, sent it to somebody, delivered, practiced it, and won 2 Modacity Lifetime licenses.
Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. This is really cool.
With Josephine as well. Yeah.
And Joe was telling me personally that having the timer kept her focused, in the sense that, because you just got to move on.
Yeah.
As when you don't have a specific plan, and it's easy to get, I wish I know the word in English. In French, there's a word, enlisé. It's like exactly like when a car gets stuck in mud. So, I think like in practice, if you don't have a very precise plan at time, or there's no real structure, sometimes it's easy to get stuck in the mud. And
totally. Or go down rabbit holes.
Like, yes.
Oh, I wonder what happens if I do this fingering. Yeah. So good. Thank you for sharing that, Joe. I appreciate it. So we're moving on from body mastery. We had the body scan, and we had modular warm up. That was really cool. I like that idea. And we talked about mindfulness modalities like Qigong, pranayama, meditation, breath work, Feldenkrais, etc. It seems like most musicians eventually settle on one or some. But someone says traction. Curious, can you elaborate on that? We'll get the elaboration.
Is it because I was talking about a car stuck in the mud?
Oh, and on these,
Yeah,
what
so
you said in French.
maybe the oh, I see. Traction. No, enlisé is really the term of when you're stuck in the mud, but it's true that the timer, the structure, the plan gives us traction.
Yeah, it does. Bingo.
And sorry, if I can add just a little thing too with the modular practice, what I like to do, and also I'm a huge geek, so forgive me if I'm like throwing in too many details in there, but I need to be engaged all the time. So, for example, I'll be stuck on one exercise that I love, but then the next day, for some reason, I really don't want to do that, but I still want to do a left hand exercise of some sort. So I have a binder full of photocopies of all of my favorite left hand exercise or right hand exercise or a shifting exercise. And then so whenever I'm like, okay, it's time for dexterity work, but can't be bothered with shredding today, I can just open this binder and I'm like, oh, like I haven't done the Varga in a long time. I really like this one. So for me, I like to target aspects of playing and then find exercises that keep me engaged and I'll use the word excited. One is allowed to be excited with technical work. No?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And should be, or else you're not really learning as deeply as you can. Because we talked about emotion was the day after body. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if we actually talked about this, but learning deepens incredibly. We're talking about a range of like 1,000% deeper learning based on the valence of your emotion, mm-hmm. which is why some of your most poignant emotional memories are unforgettable. Whereas that boring meal that you had 5 years ago that was exactly the same with nobody and no conversation, it's like gone in a mm-hmm. week.
It's interesting. This was years ago. I'm talking 15 years ago. I remember reading an article about this man. Now I forget all the details, but he had completed like a couple of college degrees in a very short amount of time and started some businesses. And he had learned about learning while being in an elevated physical state. Mm. So he would read textbooks while lifting extremely heavy weights. So he was a bodybuilder as well. So he would do interleaving of lifting weights and then reading, lifting weights, and reading. And then I remember, so at the time I was lifting weights as well and running a lot. So I would bring a binder with my orchestra, my excerpt with the music, and then I would hit the treadmill and run hard.
Solid.
I don't do that anymore, but anyway, I thought it was
solid.
It was interesting.
So solid. Get 2 university degrees, make a couple businesses, and get super jacked while you're doing it too, and feel great.
I'm gonna have to Google this and find out who that was. It's been a while.
So cool. Yeah, heightened emotions. It really does matter. And then the alternative is that depressing or lowered emotions or harmful emotions, if you will. I mean, I think that in the right doses, every emotion has a great role. The problem is when it's not appropriate or when it's prolonged out of balance is when it's a problem. That's what emotional mastery is all about.
Yeah, that's a big topic right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah. I mean, it's like almost I don't even want to say anything because once you open it, it's like where do you stop?
But a reminder that we are inviting you to write your questions as they come. We're kind of going through the week, and as we revisit and activate the memories of each day, just feel free to write your questions. We may not get to it immediately, but Definitely open to any questions or comments. We talked about objectivity versus subjectivity, putting a little distance between yourself and what you're feeling, and also being able to remove that distance so you can just become a raw emotion when you're performing or playing as well, disappear into it.
And one emotion that I'm hearing a lot about from clients and students is frustration. And I want to tie it to expectations, in the sense that a lot of that frustration comes from expecting. Yeah. That's a good comment, Joe. You want to see those results right away. And it's to remember that, especially for a skill that needs to be acquired over time, can't expect the results right away. So it's, how can you show up every day with patience and curiosity and fascination and just trust the process. So it's building this patience is not always easy.
But it's so worth doing, because the frustration just builds more frustration, which takes, sort of keeps your brain, some of your forebrain deprived of oxygen, which makes learning harder, which makes you slower, which makes things more frustrating, which makes learning harder. So it is valuable to really hear it. Talking to Joe for a second about finding it hard to hear the emotion that you're playing. I think that it takes some getting used to it. Just like if you're watching, if you have a pet, for example, pet cat or pet dog, the first time that you interact with it, you're not really sure how they might be feeling. And so then you start to observe, and after a while, the nuances of different behaviors and sort of flavors of personality come out. When you listen to recordings of yourself, the more you get familiar with your sound, the more you overcome those first mental obstacles of just like, oh my God, this is what I sound like, and oh wow, I'm a little out of tune, or like, that's not at all what I thought I sounded like. You can start to get past that and then really start to hear like, wow, I can even hear my thoughts in some ways. I remember pulling audition prep recordings from like 2012, and this is like 2016, I pulled out these recordings, and I could hear myself thinking about intonation when I was listening back to these recordings 4 years later, and I knew it. You could hear the thoughts. And I think that we don't listen enough in this mode of like, wow, what's the whole picture of like the information being broadcast through this instrument at me. But the more you get into that mode, the more you hear it. And then it's like being Neo in the Matrix, where all of a sudden everything's like ones and zeros, and you see everything and hear everything.
Yeah. Yes. I like what Rachel is saying. That's amazing. This is so great.
Yeah, it's funny how kindness makes things more enjoyable and gives you better results. Because she also said that she was more relaxed, focused, large improvement this week. It's like such a win when you practice well. Was there anything more you wanted to say about frustration?
Well, one thing that's a lot on my mind too, is that because I talk so much about trauma, both with the participants in the Music Master experience and the clients, and then it's a conversation I've had on social media lately too. It's really interesting how I was talking about with a colleague also the other day, this, and now I'm thinking in French, so I'm going to try and switch back to English because it was a conversation in French. It's so interesting how this way of teaching students with harshness is prevalent, and it's staying with everything that we know about positive thinking and positive reinforcement. And there's this, what's the word in English? This conception that if you are kind to your students, you're encouraging negligence and mediocrity. And I really hope that this can change, because it's absolutely possible to hold high standards and be demanding with the students, yet be extremely respectful, build their self-esteem at the same time, and just is do good, you know? I mean, I just feel like I'm hearing from so many people that they are so afraid of playing in public, and they have these dreams of a musical career that are completely crushed because now they have this debilitating fear of performing that comes from trauma inflicted on by
Yeah,
teachers.
teachers, mostly teachers.
And I think that, like, I am so um, you know, I'll take myself as an example. When I got to my master's, I had a teacher that I loved dearly, and he's passed now. I loved him dearly, but he was, old style. When I started studying with him, he was already 78 years old. So we're talking about a completely different generation and way to do things. And at that time, I had already developed a lot of my own ideas, and I was centered enough in myself that I was able to separate myself from the negative comments and see the intention behind it of him wanting me to do good. I was able to be like,
Nice.
that's just how he teaches. And I was able to go home and have a lovely evening, even though he would yell at me for half an hour.
Wow.
But not everybody had that. And so, anyway, I don't know if I'm coming up with any conclusion on this, but I think that for me, it's something I want to talk about all the time because I feel like it can change. And, people like us and everyone watching who has students, it's up to us.
Yeah. Well, and as you mentioned, you could take personal responsibility with that teacher for avoiding receiving harm, for understanding with compassion where he was coming from, and for taking the good that he was offering and discarding the bad, not getting any harm. So there is personal responsibility we all have
Yeah.
for that.
So,
And
I mean, I just want to clarify, I feel only love for him.
yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful. So that takes us to day 6, which is impact and output mastery, talking about positive impact and the compounding effect of what we do. That's been very powerful personally for me to think about. We talked about zones of impact, like how your practice affects your mindset, your body, your musical concepts, your energy levels, your relationships. I'm curious if anybody wants to just sort of spitball words or phrases into the chat of other zones of impact that they identified that their practice has an effect on.
I'll be really curious.
Yeah. My
Don't these
social life.
Yeah, for sure.
Ultimately, my practice also led me to start Modacity, because I wanted a certain level of efficiency in my practice and I didn't want to achieve it with paper and pencil. So it's like completely shifted my life path at that point. Yeah, work life. Even if you don't work as a musician, your practice can impact it. Especially if you are learning to have radical kindness, acceptance, emotional awareness, body awareness. You bring that to your work life, all of a sudden it's a different world.
I mean, for me, everything I do, Might Over Finger, the podcast, everything. And also my kids.
Oh, how so?
Because let's say I'll put this in terms of the guiding young children to various things in life, stumbling blocks that they're facing, issues that they're having, or, now they do a little bit of piano, work at school. And so it's practicing is problem solving. Also, so that aspect of that, but also the beauty of music. We're playing music in the house a lot. We're exposing them to arts, things like this. So I feel like it has an impact on how I raise my children, the fact that I have music in my life, for sure.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, impact covers a lot. And we also talked about regenerative practice versus sustainable practice, meaning regenerative actually adds net value or net energy into your world, versus destructive practice or unsustainable practice, which I personally have experienced. Um,
Oh yeah,
a lot of people have.
that's true. I mean, I was only thinking of the positive impact, but we could talk about the negative impact too. It's like I missed a shift. I have no technique. I'm a terrible person, and
Yeah.
then gotta go be a nice person to my spouse, and that when you're in this mind frame of I'm a horrible person, you know.
Yeah, it's hard to be available and loving to others when you're like so down on yourself or just
Yeah.
distracted by something. So it
Thankfully, that
definitely.
happens less and less now.
Good job. Master practicer right here. Justine said, wasn't really able to get into this one, but I noticed that you don't always see improvement instantly. Yeah, after a week or two. Definitely.
Yeah.
And when it comes to something like impact, it's not just a week, but it's a year, it's 10 years, 1,000 hours of one. It's like, I think I've heard that flying from LA to New York, if you're off by 1 degree, you like end up in Washington, D.C. or something. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So it's that thing where, you're really setting your intention, and then over time, you're either landing in New York or you're landing in DC or you're landing in Miami. And that's a big, big difference. But at first it's just one degree of direction.
Well, it's like what you were, yeah, that graph that you were showing was so great. Where you,
Mm-hmm.
that one person.
Mm-hmm.
I like
We've
that
got,
next comment.
yeah, successful practice and the sense of progress bleeds over to all areas of life. The sense of accomplishment encourages general self-confidence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get stuff done, you get stuff done.
And I think Joe's post is kind of a good segue into integration too,
Mm-hmm.
because I like that you say you weren't as able to get into this one, because one thing I would sorry, I can't speak English. I forget all my words. Recommend. I mean, I think that it was so much fun for me to work with you, Mark, this week. You're so inspiring. And, it was just these working together on these emails was for me so inspiring. But I was thinking that all of these things come together and they will continue to get together. So what you're saying, Joe, you'll notice after a week or two, is there's so much great information in those emails. How can you, remind yourself to maybe go back and reread them and see how the impact day maybe didn't resonate with you this time as much, but a couple months from now you could read that email again and be like, oh, like today this for me resonates so strongly. So as everything integrates together, I feel like revisiting those concepts is going to make it so that everything we talked about over the past 7 days will continue to like work in your head and grow and seeps in
Yeah.
your cells.
And we also talked about these zones of competence, right? So when something is unconsciously competent, you don't even know that you're not doing it or that you don't have a grasp. And then all of a sudden it just comes into your awareness and you think, wow, I don't really understand that. And unfortunately, incompetence is sort of a bad word. It has a negative connotation. Oh, you're so incompetent, but it's actually a good word. It just describes a phenomenon, which is when you're not yet competent at something.
Mm-hmm.
And when things are in that stage, it's like, oh wow, oh I just discovered it, and now I'm conscious of it. And then it just starts naturally. If you keep it in your consciousness, it comes into your awareness. I personally don't like you. Yeah, sure. I don't know who Patty is, but we'll just let that be there.
Everyone is entitled to their own opinion.
Definitely. So yeah, things will move, and if you keep consciousness on it, it will integrate from incompetent to competent, and then to automatic, where you're doing it.
Yeah.
And varied repetition was something that we spent a lot of time on. So the other idea you're talking about, Renee, of like coming back to it in a week or a month, but maybe taking a slightly different angle on it is a way to vary the repetition of bigger concepts.
Yeah. I like what Mark says. Practice is goal-oriented.
Mark crushed it.
Yes.
This was a deliberate, dedicated action, signing up for July Jazz Camp. Good job. Mark, did that come out of this challenge, the sign up, or had you already done that? I'm curious to know. I would love to see other deliberate, dedicated actions. Someone said they formatted the emails in Word to print and put in a binder for future reference. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, Rachel says she felt overwhelmed at times with the amount of amazing information.
Mm-hmm. Good.
We'll have to do it again.
Yeah, let it seep in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Expanding the world. So now would be a time if anybody has any further questions or curiosities that we can just answer whatever comes up. Feel free to post. And if we don't receive any questions, I'll lead a quick integration meditation.
That sounds good.
I'm going to show this comment. I think it might be a spam bot that said that. But
that's interesting. I can't solve that problem.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
That's so great, Mark, what you're saying about now you know how to prepare.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, I mean, I argue with Rachel. There's who said, oh, it was Facebook user was talking about how they printed it. I haven't yet, but you're inspiring me. I need to print them yet. Also, I remember writing to that professor I mentioned earlier, which was 5 years after graduation and practicing. And I was pondering on something he had talked about so many times and emailing him and thinking and telling him. So at the time he's in his 80s, right? And he was really good with the emails. And I was like, you know that thing you kept talking about? I'm starting to get it. Like, I think it's happening. And I was telling him, like, I think it's too bad I can't, travel and go play it for you because I think I'm starting to get it. Wow. And this was 5 years later. So the beauty is that there really is no rush to absorb all of this. You can go back to it and apply one thing, two things, stay with one thing for 1 week, a month if necessary. There really is so much that can keep being with you over the next few months, I think. I know for me as well.
Same. Yeah. So I don't see any further questions. I'm going to leave Beverly. I do want to share this one. She said, surprised to see she could learn a piece in 15 minutes. Yes, that is the idea. Wow. And going to play for a memory care facility. Didn't need to spend 4 months learning something and could build your repertoire with a wider range of music. Yeah, that is it. Thank you, Beverly, for sharing that. And Joe says, I'll be unpacking this for a while. Good. The gift that keeps keeps on giving, just keep unpacking more.
But that's the thing with beginner's mind. One of the quote I have in my handout is oh, I would have to pull it out, but the amateur says, I already know this. Not the amateur, but the
the professional.
Yeah, I already know this. And the wise person says, thank you for reminding me.
Mm.
And I think it's so true. I mean, let's go to even being in the practice room, feeling frustrated, something's not working. Are you breathing? It could be that easy. So yeah, there's so many things that we will be unpacking for a while for sure.
Yeah. Well, sweet. I'm gonna lead a quick 3 to 5 minute meditation.
I think we might.
We have another spam about gardening. Whatever. So please, everybody, find a comfortable position for your meditation. You can close your eyes and just start to become present with the temperature of the air in the room, any sounds that you might be hearing. The speed and sensation of your breath. Any feelings or sensations you have in the body. And if you do have thoughts rising, you can just notice the thoughts. We'll probably have a few more of them too. It's okay. But come to witness your experience from that centered place, a mindful place. And remembering what may have inspired you to sign up for this Masterful practice event in the first place, and what sort of musician, what sort of practicer you were coming in on day 0. Maybe some images or memories come to mind. Words or phrases. Start to remember the journey through the week, the journey through time, through intention. Remembering both the successes and the challenges. Of attention mastery. How your sense of attention has evolved, deepened this week. Into the body. Body mastery as part of your practice. Your emotional deep dive, what you learned, what edges you might have bumped up against, or what questions might have surfaced. Or again, what successes you might have had. Moving to impact and output mastery. Thinking about any zones of impact that you especially want to have a positive compounding benefit on. Starting to visualize your music practice, your life practice, having that effect. Small actions cascading out. Creating big transformations. And finally, integration mastery. Your skills at learning, consolidating, reflecting, making something your own. It's time to use that. It's time to make this Masterful Practice Challenge your own. And if there are any deliberate, dedicated actions coming to mind, you might bookmark those. Taking a moment to thank yourself for your participation. And gratitude to Renee. Give myself a little gratitude as well. Gratitude to music. It's incredible art. Seeing the path in front of you unfolding with greater and greater mastery, greater and greater joy. You can open the eyes, slowly come back. All right, thank you everybody. It's been a wonderful week. If you want to go even deeper into this, the next step would be Renee's Music Mastery Experience, which is 12 weeks. Is that right, Renee?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Quite a bit more.
Starts June 1st. And I know I'm looking at Joe here. I think Joe's going to be a Modacity user for life, right? So do you want to tell us just a little bit more about that for those who want to go beyond the free trial?
Yeah, we have the details in day 7 email, but we've got not just a $20 discount for participating in the challenge for anybody that's signed up, but if you have a 7-day practice streak, we're adding another $25 discount for that lifetime. So all you have to do is just take a screenshot of your Modacity dashboard showing the 7-day streak and email it to us, support@modacity.co. Put that in the comments.
Awesome.
Or message it to us and we'll get you. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you, Mark, Rachel, Margot, Joe, everybody else who's watching.
Yeah, thanks everyone.